Hey everybody, it's the Cursing Explorer, and I am finally back after an insanely long hiatus. And I decided to jump back into Final Fantasy XIV, and these are the 5 top things I learned in my first week back in the game. Number 1, the size, the scale, and the beauty of this game. When it comes to MMOs, I gotta admit, FF14 has probably gotta be the top notch. Now, I'm an old school WoW player. I've been playing WoW since vanilla. I've seen all the different graphic updates they've done, and while that game is fantastic, it's got excellent pacing, the graphics are decent, and I'm going to leave it at decent. They're just different than what I like. And what I will say about Final Fantasy XIV is it has more earthy tones. It's less cartoony, even though it's a little bit more anime. The graphics, the sound effects, and it's just a beautiful game. And the last thing I want to touch on is the scale. When it comes to your character, unlike in games like WoW, where everything just feels massive and you feel like microscopic, in this game everything sort of feels like you're the right size. Everything's proportionate. You'll go against a giant boss, a little boss, you'll go into a giant city, little city, but no matter where you go or what you do in the game, you feel the same size. So it's actually something that is really hard to quantify if you haven't played this game. But when you go from town to town, you can really see how your character fits in the world, as well as the world itself kind of feeling like alive. Unlike in WoW, when you go into a shop and there's just a vendor, here when you go into a shop, there's going to be a vendor, there's going to be a customer, there might be somebody sitting down having tea, and it just really adds to the world being alive. Okay, and the second thing I learned this week is you're probably going to want to skip that main story. I actually ended up being on a preferred world, which gave me an experience buff while I was leveling. And what ended up happening is I ended up being level 50, but I was stuck on level 30 main story quests. And the problem with this is, once you hit level 50, you go into the next expansion pack. And once you're in the next expansion pack, much like in other games, the experience that you need to get to the next level is way more than it was the previous level. But the problem is, all the quests you're doing are giving you the same exact experience. So the game ends up, feeling like it was pacing very well, and then just goes to a complete stop. And I understand there's going to be a lot of fanboys out there. They're going to be like, you really need to do the story. You really need to do the story. I got almost 50 hours into this game so far, and I'm like halfway through the first vanilla main story, and that's not including the amount of time I'm going to have to put into the expansion. So I said, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and get the levels, the main story skip, so that I can just jump into this game and actually play, because I was sick and tired of sitting there all day and just watching the world go by. Third thing I learned this week is that the data centers are stupid. The idea is when you make a character, you pick a data center, and the data center has a whole bunch of servers. There's 4 data centers for North America, and I might mess up their names, but just bear with me on that. There's Aether, which I guess is like the hardcore raiding data center. Crystal, which is the, oh my goodness, overall RP server. I think it's Primal is kind of like the PvP server. And Dynamis is your leveling server. I say server, but that's the data center. And on those, they have a whole bunch of different worlds that you can pick on. I don't know if I made the mistake or not, but I started on the Dynamis data center because it was a preferred world bonus, which means I got extra experience to level. But the problem with that is they have this weird data center transfer feature, because so many players go to like Aether to do their raiding that they end up making a character on Dynamis and then moving the character over to Aether, essentially living on that server, never actually staying on your current world, which can actually make the newer servers like the Dynamis data center feel really empty. And it's also a huge misnomer. The community has made everybody believe that every data center has to do something, and I'm pretty sure it's just some excuse they have to kind of gatekeep themselves out of everything. And before you think, oh, the raiders are the ones gatekeeping, no. I think it's everybody else. And that leads me into the 4th thing I discovered in my first week of playing this game. And that's that the towns are full of people. Now, at first glance, you might say, oh, that's great. That shows an active community. But it's kind of the opposite. While, yeah, they're active, they're talking about who knows what, they're not actually playing the game. I remember I went into Limsa Lominsa, and there were 3 or 4 people doing a dance emote for 4 days. They just sat in the town doing an emote for literal days. As you're doing the main story as a low level, you're forced to go through all these major towns, and as soon as you go to anything that looks like a tavern or anything, it is just full of people. And when I say it's full of people, I'm going to be flat out and say it is full of role players. Not that there's anything wrong with role playing if role playing is your thing. The problem is when you're just here trying to play the fucking game and you got so many cat boys talking about this and that and fucking dick and fart jokes every 2 seconds, it's really annoying. It seems like most people in this game would rather spend time in town talking about things that aren't actually relevant to the game. And what I mean by that again is they're just making up little stories in their head. They'd rather do that than actually go and play the game, which I don't know why they just don't stay on Discord. And that leads us into the fifth thing that I learned this week, and that is that this community is positively toxic and has the maturity of a 40-year-old virgin. It is the strangest thing I've ever seen. If you ask somebody a question about the game, not only will they talk down to you, but it's almost like they get all jacked up, like, oh, this is my moment. I can show one of these peasants I know more than they do. And they explain things in such a way as if you are a toddler. And do not, and I repeat, do not make the mistake I did, which was informing somebody that I was not retarded. I just needed to know the time of something, not the Encyclopedia Britannica version. To which case, I ended up essentially leaving the first free company I joined because apparently it's okay to constantly talk about being a femboy wanting to suck the cocks of everybody that runs around, but once you say, don't talk to me like I'm retarded, that's a fucking problem. I've never seen a gaming community that speaks so poorly, speaks so vile, speaks so disgusting, but the moment you say something that they don't like, they piss, moan, and act like you somehow fucking kicked their dog. If you like this video, you hated this video, leave a comment on it. I'm going to be making another video about how terrible the novice network is and how just disgusting the mentors are, so stay tuned for that one. If you enjoyed this or you're looking forward to any future content, please like and subscribe. Thank you.